Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? I'm Shruti and I am a public speaking coach at Enthusiastic. Today I'm going to start with series number 2 and the topic of the series is going to be debate. One of the very interesting topics and um, probably misunderstood, right? So I'm going to call it debate as the sport of argument where logic is your weapon, evidence is your shield, and persuasion is your prize. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to debate? What are the first few words that come into your mind when it's about debate? Think about it, and I think it'll help you understand, uncover your myths versus the realities, and I hope we clear off so many things that we have misunderstood about, right? Okay, so what is a debate, first of all, right? We can say that it is something which is structured, it's a conversation or it's a dialogue which is structured. It can also be a monologue, right? It's basically a regulated, very formal setup of discussion between two opposing sides where it's not a match that you shout upon, right? You don't have to shout about your opinions, but it is a very formal setup where you are stating your opinions, right? We can say that it's balanced, of course, because for a certain topic, we are talking about in favor and in against of that certain topic. So both of the sides, both the opponents, they get equal time and opportunity to present their case, right? Persuasive, of course, that is one of the main agendas of a debate where how is it that you are able to convince the ones who are listening to you, the jury, the audience. Okay, the goal over here itself is to convince the judge or the audience through logic and evidence and not volume. So this is not about how long is your script, how much do you speak, how many words did you mention in maybe a minute or two. No, you will have a limited set of time and you are supposed to make the best out of that given time, making sure that you have the required evidence, you have the required skills to persuade, convince, or influence people, and make sure that you win, right? Now, moving on, what is the anatomy of a motion when it comes to debate? Okay, the motion is basically the topic that is under debate. Okay, and it is important that you know um, it has both sides, right? For example, one of the very common and most recent topics that we can say is about artificial intelligence, right? We have both good and bad when it comes to artificial intelligence. More than good and bad, I would say we have both in favor and in against that we can go, when it comes to artificial intelligence. So, how does it work, that we choose the topic? Can we just choose any kind of topic? No, right? So let's see what are the different types. The first type of motion is basically fact. This is a category of motion where it's important to understand whether if it satisfies the question of being answered in the format of a true or a false statement. Okay, for example, social media used negatively impacts teenage mental health. We can definitely answer this saying a yes or a no. It doesn't require another word to go ahead with. Of course, it's open for debate later. Of course, it's open for discussion later. But the first thing that comes into our mind is yes or no, right? Most likely, of course, the answer here is yes. Of course, if you use social media in the wrong way or in an excessive manner, doom scrolling that we call in the current generation is definitely going to impact mainly the teenage category and their mental health, right? Going ahead with the second category of motion is basically the value. So here what it asks is which principle matters the most? When we talk about principles, it's very close to us, isn't it? We do not like that certain boundaries are crossed. We do not like that, not we, anyone for that matter. There is a reason why ethics exist. There's a reason why values and principles and morals exist. When it comes to that, the answer is pretty clear, right? There is no debate about it most of the time, unless there is a different perception that it has, right? So, taking an example over here is privacy is more important than public security. Tell me, we have public security at one end, which is so important. At the same time, we have privacy, which is non negotiable. So, between privacy and public security, privacy will always weigh higher or more because you know uh, Public security can be taken care of in many different ways. However, when it comes to privacy, there's no negotiation or no way to bargain on that, right? Now, coming to the third category, we have policy. So what it asks is, there is a certain situation, what is it that we can do in this certain situation? Okay, school should start at 10 a.m. to improve student performance. Now, there are a lot of discussions sometimes where people are like, it's too early for kids to get up in the morning, it's too difficult for parents who are mostly working nowadays, right, to get them up and to get ready yourself and prepare your kids and so many things. I understand it's a responsibility which people take happily. However, if there is a way out, if there is a way that kids can be happy at the same time of being at ease, not having to hurry in the morning of having breakfast, why not? Can there be a policy around this? So, this kind of motion basically answers the question, what is it that we can do to make sure that the kids are getting the best out of it? Any involved certain set of people, let it be the school, let it be kids, be parents, so many things, get the best out of this, right? And of course, kids out of everyone are the most impacted people, I mean impacted set of people in this, isn't it? So basically, when it comes to motion, we need to understand it's not about whether if the answer is right. Okay, it is about whether if which side is very clearly stronger than the other. Okay, so also, of course, the persuasion and the convincing skill also comes into picture. Like I mentioned, it completely depends on the kind of perceptions that people present, or the kind of point of view that people present. Okay, now let's talk about the teams that we have in debates. Okay, you can call it any name that you want. The most formal way of calling this is the affirmative versus the opposition. What is affirmative? Affirmative is basically when you are in favor, okay, of that particular statement. Opposition is when you are against of that particular statement, right? So we call affirmative, for example, as the architects of change. Okay, you are required to carry proof as to why a certain thing is right or whatever. Okay, and you are required to propose what can be done to solve it, what kind of situation is it creating, who are the people impacted in this. Okay, when it comes to opposition, you are actually trying to challenge the whole logic, and whatever evidence is being presented by the opponent, you're trying to challenge that as well. You are trying to defend why is it that this certain policy or a certain rule or a certain situation does not need to be changed, and that whatever the opponent is saying is not required at all, it's irrelevant. Okay, in such a case, you're also required, in order to make sure that you're convincing the audience and the judge, you are also required to expose the flaws in the proposed plan, right? That's what happens. Now we come to the center point of the balance, which is the most hurted one. That is the role of the judge and the audience. So, what does the audience do over here? The audiences are basically witnessing the exchange of talks happening between the affirmative and the opponent, right? Their job is to basically be able to understand as observers and differentiate what kind of emotional appeals are being made, or what kind of solid evidences are being provided. Sometimes we get carried away with certain people, certain way of talking, certain words that they use because it convinces us, right? However, we need to understand that when it comes to evidence, we cannot let emotions drive us, isn't it? This is a well known fact, but unfortunately, we do get carried away one way or another. People do get carried away one way or another. So this is the job of the audience attending that particular debate, that whatever happens, they are required to learn what is different over, like, how is the emotion presented for a certain topic different from evidence, and how that evidence probably is challenging the emotion that they are presenting. It's a very, very critical life skill, not just about debate, but in your daily life as well, We want to be able to go with what is evident, what is a fact, and then take our decisions accordingly. We cannot take our decisions purely based on feeling good or not feeling good, or upset about something or not upset about something. We have to make sure whatever is fact, we act according to that, right? The other person over here is the honorable judge, the jury members who are deciding which of the side of the argument is weighing more, right? They they look at where is it that you're, intersecting, where is it that you are really like, um you know getting head on, and like it mentions over here, they weigh the clash of the arguments not based on what they feel about a certain topic, but they depend completely on how they feel a certain side has reasoned out their talk, has given the required evidence or proof, and which side, between affirmation and opposition, has fulfilled their burden properly, right? Now, moving ahead, I have a simple matrix over here which makes it easy for you to understand and also remember. I call it the debate dynamic matrix. Using this matrix will help you to plan your strategy and track your argument's impact during a debate. Okay? Now, let's go ahead with the first category when it comes to debate. The first category is evidence. From the affirmation point of view, you are required to mention, or you are required to provide with proof as to, show that there is harm or there is a problem that exists, there is a situation which needs to be resolved. While the opponent, what they do is they provide evidence or they provide proof to say that no, there is no harm. They deny the harm, or they say that there might be impact, but it is negligible. It is not as big as, you say, and that it is not big enough for you to make changes in this, right? Coming ahead with logic, propose a viable logical solution. Now you have shared that there is a problem. You have shared, in from the affirmation side of you have shared that there is a problem. What kind of impact is it creating? Now you are the one who is supposed to give solution to it, right? Okay. Now, what will the opposition do over here? They will expose the flaws, right? They will tell how it is contradicting, or what are the gaps that are, created here with the solution that the affirmative is presenting, and how is it that this situation again does not need to be changed, or there is no problem rather. Okay. The last thing over here that you are going to present from the affirmation side of you is that you show the benefits, and you show how is it that the benefits are more than the risks that it involves. Sometimes we take decisions which have risks, but we call them as calculated risks. Calculated risk is basically when you know that yes, there is something that can go wrong, but even if it goes wrong in an xyz manner, we can handle it, we can take this risk, we have the required threshold to go through this and make sure that we achieve our goal still. And the main thing that we need to take care of here is to make sure that the benefit is achieved. Of course, the risk does not involve in anyone getting harmed, or the impact should not be harming anyone, or the impact should not be devastating. We are talking about risk where things can go wrong. However, it might create some kind of, um, some kind of, um, discomfort, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just like how change happens. Okay. Now, again, coming to the opposition point of view, what happens over here is you show the risks higher than the benefits that the affirmation is showing. So you see the kind of to and fro that is happening, this constant trial of people trying to weigh their talks on a weighing scale, right? So what you can actually do is you can pick a motion as a part of an activity over here. You can pick a motion, pick a topic, fill each of the cells for both the sides between evidence, logic, and impact, and mention it before the debate begins. It will really help you. You don't need to write a big script or a big set of dialogues or anything, because trust me, the way the dynamics change during the debate, the script may not even help you. It can help you with required information if you have done the required study that your mind will do anyway, right? Now, Let's move on. What do we have as a part of rules of the games when it comes to debate? Okay. The first rule over here is that your speeches are important to be constructive in nature. Your time is very, very valuable to make sure that you are building your case in the given time, you are presenting the evidence in the given time. It's important that the first minute you lay your foundation, and that is exactly where the argument is born, right? That is exactly where the opponent will pitch in and will start to argue or around it or debate around it, right? The next part over here is rebuttal. What do we understand when we say the word rebuttal? Okay, rebuttal is one of the very common used terminologies when it comes to debates. It is also something which is one of the most crucial way of communicating, or way of, rather I would say it's a crucial method used during mature debates. Okay, it's basically what it means is acknowledgement. When someone is saying something, like it or not, okay, you may not be in favor of it or whatever it is, are you know you are obliged to respond, you have to acknowledge. Okay, so here, like I've mentioned, when your opponent is presenting an argument against you, your time when it comes to rebuttal is required. It needs you to decode what the opponent has mentioned, the opponent's argument, basically, right? You are not required to present new arguments. When it's time of rebuttal, you are not supposed to present new arguments. You are supposed to only respond to what was said by the opponent. Because if you keep bringing in new arguments, that means you are actually on the negative side of the argument. You are not ready to listen. One of the most important thing when you are debating is also to listen. I'm not saying get convinced, I'm saying listen. Okay, the third thing, which is the golden rule in a debate, is that if your opponent is making an argument and if you do not respond, you concede that point by default. That means if you do not respond to that point, even if you are bringing new argument, it means you are defeated, you do not win. Okay, where I would say silence, it means agreement. Okay, you may say whatever you want later. I don't agree, I did not like the way this person spoke, I did not I know that it's wrong, but I did not have point. No. Okay. Of course, do your study as much as possible. It is completely possible that you do not know about it, but you are required to respond, sticking to your opinion, ensuring that whatever it is that you are saying, you are, not budging down with the opposition's point of view. Okay. Now, moving on, let's take this activity to strengthen our skills, what we've understood so far. The motion over here is school uniform should be mandatory. Okay. Now, the affirmative here would be that people will build case with clear claims, right? And what the opposition will do is they will challenge those claims and present their evidence, right? When it says open rebuttal over here, so the affirmative will start their debate. They will mention what is it, whether, if it should be mandatory, it should not be mandatory, what is it about. Then the opposition will start to argue and start to challenge whatever the affirmative has mentioned. And then there will be a time where each of the side will be given 60 seconds. So 90 seconds each for affirmative and opposition to present or challenge the certain motion. The rebuttal set would be for 60 seconds each, where you clash, you conclude, you summarize, you deliver what you have. Okay, you go hang on head on to present your point and defend your point properly, right? So here what you need to do is you are required to make sure whatever you're talking, you're articulating it very well and you're being very specific. You have a clear pronunciation because it's required that the other person is understanding clearly, then it should not divert from the topic. You are required to make sure that you are in a steady volume, not shouting too much or not too low. You should be speaking in a manner where you are clearly audible, you are very clearly speaking, your words are clear, pronunciations are clear. It doesn't mean anything else when you say a certain word, because it should not come to a point when people say, I thought I heard this. Okay, because it completely, you know, it's like throwing water on a hot pot, right? You are in the middle of an argument, you are in the middle of an important discussion, but when you know, when things can go wrong, it will spoil the whole thing, right? We wouldn't eat food which is once heated and then again made cold, right? We want it hot. Okay, so when it comes to rebuttal, that is your time when you convince everyone. The time you start to present your case, or as an opposition you start to challenge, you start building your case there, but rebuttal is that open forum where you build it overall. You know, that is where people are like, okay, yes, this is my decision now. All right, moving ahead, building your case. Okay, I call this as the argument table. So what happens is that there are three parts which are connected to each other, and every single strong argument is built from these parts. Okay, you will, when you master this skill, you will be able to argue on anything. Again, let me tell you something: argument is not necessarily negative. There are different factors that decide whether if the argument is positive or not. Okay, that comes in another set of series, but let me complete this argument table for you first. The first component would be your claim. What is it that you are claiming? Okay, this is the main thing where, this is the main point of your argument. This is the core, this is the reason of your argument. So you have to claim, for example, students need more sleep to perform well. So your core argument would be that yes, the kind of homework that is given to students, the kind of co-curricular activities that students are made to necessarily, like mandatorily be involved in, it makes it very difficult for them to focus. They are tired, and the kind of punishments they get if they are not completing their tasks is also not good for mental health. So they need a good 8 hours of proper rest and sleep so that they can shine bright the next day. Okay, what is the evidence behind it? You can actually produce data or an expert opinion based on, maybe you conduct a research in across maybe 50 schools, 25, you take a sample of those places, you present what is published in favor of the claim that you're making. For example, studies show that 8 plus hours of sleep improves the GPA by up to zero point 0.5 points. Isn't it something worth understanding or worth mentioning? If by sleeping properly for 8 hours, students grades, sometimes you are left just by those zero point 0.5 points, isn't it? If you are able to score that by taking the required rest, taking self care, why not? Right? This is not negotiable again. Okay, if you're sleeping for, let's assume, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, is it going to help you be productive? Maybe one day, maybe maximum 1 month. Okay, but you cannot go on like that forever. This is how you can talk and present your case. Okay, the ultimate part of the argument would be reasoning. Whatever your argument is, whatever data or evidence that you're providing, what is your claim based on that data? What is your claim based on that evidence? So if I take the argument, therefore later school start times directly cause higher academic performance, right? Instead of, now see, kids, even if they sleep early, they can sleep only as early as probably 9, right? And if they have to take about 7 or 8 hours of sleep, they have to get up by um, like 6 a.m., right? So if you are starting the school itself at 8 a.m., that means the kid, the moment they get up, right, they rush, they run. They have to take bath, they have to prepare their bag, they have to prepare, they have to see if they completed the homework or not, if they're carrying the required books or not. I understand that majority of the schools nowadays promote not carrying heavy school bags, but still, you need to carry something with you, or whatever. You need to be mentally prepared to be able to participate in school, right? So if you do not have that self time, you see how we are struggling in our later years to find a nice slow morning, right? We always find ourselves rushing in. This is what happens when you have a childhood where you had to rush to school. You can present all these things as a part of your argument, right? So this is why I call this the argument table. And when you understand how this structure works, you will understand how it is creating the required impact and how you can create that weight or weight, and how you can convince the jury to pick your case as the winning side. Okay, now why is it that debate matters? Okay, we are coming to an end of this. Why is it that the debate matters? Is because it helps you to sharpen your mind. You are on toes to think what is fact, what is evidence, what is it that you need to present, how is it that you need to argue effectively. Okay, debate is not about trophies. All right, debate is not about just collecting the shiny objects, but it is about you training your brain to think critically under pressures. You are under uh, you know um, limited time, right? So it is important that you understand what you think at that point of time is the only thing that's going to help. You cannot get carried away, you cannot make it personal, you cannot let your emotions sway you. You have to make sure that facts are facts and they are presented the way that they're supposed to be presented, right? The second part over here is transforming the conflict. What happens over here is you have the required tools, which is your evidence, your claim, right? Your reasoning, your logic. You have all these tools to make sure whatever argument can be heated in nature, you can make it constructive, you can make it evidence based dialogue. What does it mean? It means here, when it comes to debate, it does not mean the one who shouts higher or shouts louder is the one who wins. No, you can be as calm as you can be, but make sure that you strongly present your point and still win, right? It debating is not proportional to shouting on top of your voice. It is clearly and directly proportional to how strongly you are presenting your argument, how strong evidence you are presenting over there. Okay, that's what this whole thing comes to. Now I have a challenge to give to you. Okay, when it comes to debate, identify one status quo in your daily life and debate a better alternative to using these steps. What do we mean by status quo? Status quo is basically, for example, iPhone, right? iPhone is a phone. I understand it has really one of the best features and everything. I completely understand. But does it mean that a phone that probably costs around 50,000 or 60,000 INR, it doesn't have the required security, it doesn't follow the required security protocols? No. Mainly people run towards iPhone nowadays is because they want to be a part of the status quo. They want to be like, okay, I also belong to a higher status. Why? Because I have iPhone. It doesn't matter if I'm somehow making the end meets. It doesn't matter if I am struggling otherwise in other areas of some, that person is struggling in their other areas of their life, but they have an iPhone because they want to fit in the society. They want to be like, okay, I also have an iPhone, which means I can talk to you, you can talk to me, I can be a part of this society, right? That's what status quo is all about. So I gave an example of iPhone, but you can take your own set of examples and try to challenge and debate what alternative can you use which will maintain your status quo, but it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost you your mental health, right? It doesn't have to cost you your dignity or self respect just to prove that you fit in, right? Fitting in is not the deal, it's what it is. Okay, what is it about actually is that you are at peace. Okay, so this is going to be our challenge, and the single biggest problem we need to understand in communication is the illusion that has taken place. This was a very well known quote by Sir George Bernard Shaw. Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed this series and there's more coming in, and I would like to thank all of you to having stayed till the end, and I can't wait to come back to take you forward in this journey of How to Debate Successfully, which is the name of the series. All right. So, thank you. Stay tuned. See you soon.